Hey, Blair Packham here from SongStudio. Don't forget to like this video, share it with songwriter friends or people you think might be interested, or subscribe. Check out songstudio.ca for more information.
Here's another peek at what we did at SongStudio Online last August. Hope you enjoy.
Thanks for coming, Brian. I do have a question, which is, you've made a few jokes about how, there's no morals in the music industry and all these things. And I can see how much you love music, and you're obviously a kind person. What has made it worth it for you to just keep going and keep fighting for music and musicians over all these years of seeing the good, but also seeing the bad, and no doubt at times getting disillusioned? That's my question.
I think, the truth is, if I'm being completely honest, I think I get disillusioned more now than I ever did, unfortunately, because the business has gotten so incredibly hard, particularly the last 2 years. But, I look at, first of all, I guess first and foremost, I look at the experiences that I've had. I always joke, I've never had a real job in my entire life. But of course, certainly in the early part of my careers, I worked like a dog, because it was the only way to get to where I guess I wanted to be or whatever. But I look back on it when I get the most frustrated. I just think, oh God, the people I've met, the songs that I've been in, and I'm not a musician really, and never really have been. Always been a discount would be an understatement. Musician, but to have been in the studio and experienced people making records or seen shows, whether it was my artists or friends or and the people I met. It's incredible. It's this would never happen, in any other, maybe the film business would be, but I think the film business is even dirtier than this business. So really, I'm not sure it's worth it in that business, but in this business, it just feels like there's so many, that feeling when you put on a record and you're just like, man, wow, this is like gold. That sort of is what, I've been lucky. I've, the prospects for this, kid that went to school in Scarborough were not good, Otherwise, the truth, that's the truth,
when I think that the reason all of us are here, everybody on this call and virtually everybody I know is in music. These are my peeps. When the feeling you have when you put on a great song and you hear it, as you said, is fantastic. But also the feeling when you walk into a conference in a lobby in a hotel, and it's a conference you've been to a couple of times, and it's like, here we are, everybody. Here's everybody I know. And it's a community, and it's lovely. And I too have not had a real job, really.
Good for you. Keep it up.
I know. Sometimes it's challenging.
Yes. I know.
But it's amazing. I did want to get back to the conference thing for a moment, though, just to talk about other non-folk music oriented conferences for people who don't consider themselves to cross over with that at all, that kind of music at all. Because folk music being as broad as it is, still, if you're doing EDM, you're probably not going to go to that conference. But what about Canadian Music Week? Is it worth it for an artist to go? Because
I think it's still worth it. Listen. Neil and I have been friends for longer than I could even possibly calculate, and of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't own up to working for Neil as a consultant for a good part of 13 years. Doing his international stuff. Mostly outside of Canada, so not really anything in Canada. But, it's the biggest event in Canada by far, by a long shot. There's nothing that comes close to it. The last few years, obviously not because of the world we're in, but, it's still a great, even if you can't afford the $800 or whatever it is for a badge, go hang out in the hotel lobby, for the week,
That's really true. It was at the International on Front Street, and you could just go and hang in the hotel bar and get, there are people
Totally.
cruising in and out all day long, or get yourself invited to be on a panel, which is what I did. It's not obviously that's not available to everybody, but there are ways of working around the $800 badge, which I think are entirely worthwhile. Folk Music Ontario, that their conference, you have to have a delegate badge in order to play music there, but still there's the lobby. There's the lobby of the hotel. There are venues
At
outside
every
the
event,
hotel.
pretty much, there's a lobby, and
Yeah.
I mean, my perspective on conferences has changed somewhat over the last 2 years, probably. I mean, I was sort of a regular to, I've been going to South by Southwest for, 27 years or something. I only go now for the Tejano music, but, when I started out, I didn't, and so, I'm not sure that's something that'll be on my list going forward. Some of these bigger events, the New York stuff has changed. There's been a handful of events that have come and gone in New York over the last few years. Now my thing is finding smaller events, to be honest. I find smaller events are a lot more effective. I went to an event in Portugal. It's actually my second or third time going. West White Lab in Portugal called, it's in a town called Guimarães. And, as I said, I've focused a lot of my energy over the last 15 years or so on Europe and just international in general. And so, the event was obviously very lightly attended because of COVID. It was still early days, particularly there. And, but there was 15 or 20 key European people. And we all ended up just hanging out. That's really what we did, to be honest.
Yeah.
It was like our own little conference within a small conference,
Oh, that's lovely. Yeah.
It just felt to me like we talked about the business, we talked about life, we talked about solutions. And I thought to myself, well, I've got more out of this than I have out of, a week at South by Southwest, where you're just running to the next thing. There's 20,000 people in the streets. And so that's kind of what my modus operandi is going to be, I think, in the next year or two, is really going to smaller events. And
it's to those people who say, it's all about who you know, the only solution to that is to go out and get to know people.
Absolutely, 100%.
To get out there.
I didn't know. I went to the first. It's not the first international event. I went to MEDEM, where we went as a trade mission, so I knew all the Canadian companies, right, and just had cold meetings with international people. But the first real networking where there was no Canada booth or anything was an event called Eurosonic, which is in Holland, in Groningen, try and spell that. And, I think I went in 2005, I think it was, for the first time, and huge event.
Yeah.
All like European live business and labels, etc. And I knew 4 people. And it was awkward as hell.
Yeah.
Now I go every year, and it's like, I'm like, King of Kensington, walking down the street, it's like, so yeah, you got to go, and, I don't know, some of these in the early days, I was like, I used to put I would go to the hotel breakfast. It was for free. And then I'd make a sandwich and put it in my pocket so that so I could afford to, eat lunch.
Yeah.
And you hope there was a dinner somewhere, right?
You got to do what you got to do, especially when you're not on the corporate expense account,
It's very hard.
Yeah, you got to.
God, I missed that.
Yeah, I know.
Up here.
Yeah, I've never done that. I've only been the beneficiary as an artist or as a producer. But yeah, I miss having more friends who are on the expense account. Well, we gotta wrap up. But here's a question for you that puts you on the spot. Do you mind if the people here get in touch with you, and if so, how would they do that?
Just what do you type my email?
Yeah, if you want to type it in the chat, that'd be great. I've been encouraging them to get in touch with our guests because I feel like a relationship of sorts has been established, and they might as well reach out, and with any questions. And and as I've always said, if our guests don't have an answer, they'll say, "Yeah, sorry, don't know," and that's the end of that.
Secret I can't tell you.
Yeah, that's right. It's only that's only given to the gatekeepers. The answers to that, yeah. And our job is to keep you out.
Yes, exactly.
Sometimes I get the feeling that that's what people believe. It's not true.
Only partially true.
Well, it's partially true. Well, yeah, but not really. If somebody with the thing you described earlier, with it and with drive and a catalog of tunes walks in, you're not going to keep them out.
No.
So, anyway, everyone, if you would give Brian a virtual round of applause, I would be grateful. Brian, thanks so much.
Okay, you're all very kind.
Really, it was a great session. And of course, you'll be back. We'll see you at 3:00 Eastern Time, and we'll do our demo derby at that time. But yeah, this was great. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. I'll see you later today.
See you in a while.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for taking a glimpse with us inside the Song Studio workshop from last August. Stay tuned for more.